Hi, I'm Christos Gage, writer of Superior Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, and Spider Island, and you're listening to the Amazing Spider Talk.
Two men who know the angles, uncover and untangle all the questions and the webs left out to tangle. Be in 1962, last Wednesday's afternoon, they'll bend your ears with reckless self-abandon. The Amazing Spider Talk. The Amazing Spider Talk. Come swing through the air, sit back and prepare for the Amazing Spider
Hello and welcome to the Amazing Spider Talk. My name is Dan Gvozden, and I'm the founder and editor of SuperiorSpiderTalk.com.
And I'm Mark Ginocchio, the founder of the Chasing Amazing blog and an editor at SuperiorSpiderTalk.com.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us for the 11th episode of our coverage of Volume 4 of Amazing Spider-Man. We hope you enjoy this podcast and that it provides an intelligent conversation between two fans and collectors as we hope to look at the Spider-Man comic universe in a bit of a bigger picture.
Yes, Dan, and for this episode, we will be discussing Amazing Spider-Man Volume 4, Number 11 by Dan Slott and Giuseppe Camuncoli. Then we'll give away some prizes, discuss a little bit of spider news, and that's about it.
Yeah, well,
I thought there was more there, and then I realized there wasn't.
It's a short show this time.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we'll see. We're saying that now at the outset, but that is certainly
2 hours later.
Otherwise.
That was some recording session.
Well, Mark, last episode we lavished a great deal of praise upon Amazing Spider-Man number 10, but wondered if our elation would be short-lived. I've written a review of the issue for the site, and I'm dying to know what you thought of the latest issue of Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay, Dan. Well, yeah, we thought maybe some things had turned a corner last issue. I mean, the last two issues, because we joked that Amazing Spider-Man number 9, while it wasn't as lavishly praised as 10, we enjoyed it, but we were kind of saying, oh, is this it? Is the curve gone? Or is the curve real, or whatever we were talking about with the curve in terms of grading things.
And we kind of like the Cloak and Dagger issues a bit.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. But, yeah, Dan, I would say for, what is this now? The third or fourth major long-running story arc of the Dan Slott era? I mean, the concluding issue, this was just a thud of an issue, man.
And I'm right there with you. I mean, for me, and maybe I wrote my review in a fit of anger. I was just frustrated by this issue because I don't think that they could have spelled out their intentions and attitude towards this series any more clearly than they did in this issue. And that attitude is, this is all just teasers for maybe one good story in the future, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is just such a focus now on what the story is going to be 6 months, a year, or longer than now that they're just losing sight of what's in front of them, and this is an epidemic in terms of specific to this series. So I mean, and I hate to throw stones and accusations around, but I mean the common denominator here is the writer of the series is Dan Slott. I mean, this is a guy who, we've joked a lot over the last few years how he on Twitter talks about his long game, but the long game ain't much good if you when you finally get to the point to resolve those long simmering plot threads that you just don't resolve it, which is what we have here. I mean, what happened in this comic, Dan? I'm not trying to be smug. Like, this was just seemed like this was a villain who I was finally, after months of like kind of being force fed, was coming around to as a worthy adversary, and he's back to being this kind of two-dimensional monologuing joke, and then he just kind of gets pushed into a door and told we'll hear from him in a year. I mean, that's literally that's the resolution, is we'll find out in a year.
and that is coupled with the fact that his goal, while interesting to find out all, the secrets of the upcoming year, but his goal like adds up to nothing more than just like a teaser for the upcoming Spider-Man stories. It's like, and he reads them out loud for everyone to hear. And
yeah,
okay,
like why does Scorpio care about Dr. Octopus? Like, seriously, why? At what point in this entire story would he even give a crap about Doc Ock?
And the same could be said alternatively. What does Spider-Man care that this guy is a Fury?
Nothing. Well, what did you write in your review? What was your quote? I thought it was
Dark Helmet. It makes them absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And what's even more frustrating, and if you'll allow me to be a dork here, Mark, is that in a previous story, so the implication is that this Vernon character, who is the Scorpio, is the grandson of Vernon Fury, who is Nick Fury Sr.'s like brother, right? Who is the head of the Zodiac in World War II.
Right.
Right. Okay. But in recent comic stories, we found out that character was a robot, actually, and it wasn't actually Vernon Fury. So either this guy is a robot of some kind, or an offspring of a robot, or he's just horribly confused about what his grandfather did. So, we can say, Slott, is good with his continuity, but, I mean, how does this fit into continuity? But none of that even matters, because what does Spider-Man care, this guy's, thing? And it's played like a big reveal, like, oh, that name is supposed to mean something to us, within the context of this story.
And again, I mean, I think it's missing the mark, too, in terms of, like, I mean, it's great that you went ahead and made all these connections and stuff like that. But if I'm just like the casual Spider-Man reader who has not read Secret Warriors or the original like Steranko Shield, where Jake Fury was first revealed as Scorpio, in the 60s and stuff like Fury. That. Like why would I care if I'm just the guy who's picking up this comic off the rack because, hey, look, Spider-Man's going to be in Civil War. I want to read about this guy. You know what I mean? Like it's you're not servicing anybody. It's like because you're getting the continuity wrong. So the actual stickler nerds who pay attention to this stuff are like, yeah, no, you're wrong. And the casual fans are just like, who? So congratulations, you service nobody.
So, okay, we are getting to the end of this issue, but the problems start,
very beginning.
Well, the problems start even before the beginning of the story. They start on the recap page, where there is no less than 2 grammar errors in the recap. And I hate to be this guy, but like 2 on the first page it's egregious. It is these people's jobs. And yes, maybe, Nick Lowe is juggling all these different titles, but then tell your assistant or somebody to read it and because this is it's a pattern. This is a pattern we're seeing of misspellings. They misspell no by having it without a K, and they punctuate industries between the E and the S, as if industry is spelled with an R-I-E at the end.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway.
See, that's why I don't read the recap page.
Yeah, well, good for you. But then, okay, so Mark, what's the problem on the actual first page of this story?
Well, can you, again, I'm not trying to be smug here. Can you explain a little bit what's going on? Because so the last issue ends with Peter kind of having a call to arms with all of his resources. And, you know, they're like working together, you know, go Team Parker Industries, and they're zeroing in on who the Scorpio is. And then it's like all of a sudden we open this issue and it's like, well, the satellites are down and this really isn't working, and I'm going to lose after he, like, Peter is talking in the last issue that he's willing to risk it all to win because this is how important this is. And now he's just like, well, I'm not going to win. I mean, it's like a total about face of everything. And I'm like, did I miss something? Where was the, like, did someone snap their fingers on a page somewhere and I missed it, and that just reversed all of the momentum from the previous issue in terms of what was actually happening exposition wise? I'm not even talking about like, oh, the characters are acting odd. It's like we're just ignoring the actual exposition from 2 weeks earlier, right? Or am I just being stupid?
Well, you said it's as if someone snapped their fingers. I went back to the previous issue, and there's a moment where Scorpio snaps his fingers, exactly as you said, and all the people like are no longer on the page. So my guess is that was meant to imply that somehow by snapping his fingers and being the all-powerful character that he is, he was able to sever some kind of connection between Peter and all of his friends. But it's never explained on the page. It's never visually explained. So we're just meant to, I think, interpret that means that he somehow broke up their connection. But it's not like the satellites weren't down in the previous issue as well. So I have no idea. But that is my no-prize guess as to what's happening here. But it doesn't explain Peter's kind of like sad sack attitude towards fighting the Scorpio at the opening of this book.
Yeah, I mean, like, what part of what we praised in the last issue was just kind of like we felt that was quintessential Spider-Man and Peter Parker that's been, criminally missing from this story forever. I mean, this idea of this character who's, heroic and resourceful, but a little naive and impetuous. I mean, that's who Spider-Man is. And now it's just like going back to, like you said, the sad sack character who can't get out of his own way. And, the game is rigged again. Like, the Parker luck turned up to infinity. And I just don't enjoy reading about that character. Like, that's not, that's not the Spider. I'm not going to claim ownership on Spider-Man, but I just don't like reading that version of this character, and it seems to be the well that the current creative forces like going back to for whatever reason.
But it's not even a real character beat. It like happens, and then 2 pages later, they spot Nick Fury with a laser in the sky, and suddenly he's rushing into battle very confident again, and it's like, okay, so then why have that beat in the story? It's so moment to moment. There's no consistent character. It's just whatever the story needs, even if the story doesn't even need it.
Yeah, I mean, there was just a lot of head-scratching changes in tone and in terms of dialogue, in terms of action in this comic that just really left me baffled, Dan. I mean, we get some stuff with, beats that we've repeated again and again, like I'm making an entrance. Oh, you're ruining, like that, like, can we move on from this joke, right? Like, can we please move on from this joke?
Yeah,
about
it's such
Spider-Man.
A shame. It's a shame because Camuncoli draws this really fun splash page, and
Right.
it's just like the same joke again. And it's like, yes, that is technically in character for Spider-Man to rush into battle, and yeah, he should be criticized about it. But like, and I'm not going to say exact issue numbers, but yeah, you're right. Didn't we just have this joke at least several times recently?
Yeah, I mean we're repeating beats, and I maybe I was just already in a sour mood, but like I just kind of felt like the living brain stuff during this sequence was just getting a little too over the top. I mean, it's like they're really putting the hard sell on what's actually going on with the living brain. I mean, I still think less is more with this character.
Well, it's so funny because, and I said in my review that I wouldn't be so hard on Dan Slott about this if I knew that he could do otherwise. Like, if we didn't know that the living brain had Otto in it, or there were light hints at this, it would lead to a nice surprise. Like in ASM 698, one of the best surprises I think I've ever read in a Spider-Man comic with the brain swap. But here it's like, it's so telegraphed. It's not even telegraphed. It's just there in front of you. Like, by the time it happens, you're going to be sick of it. Like, just get on with it already. Like, I have no anticipation for Otto coming back because it's like, whatever. I know it's going to happen. It's with all of this. Even the ending with Scorpio, Otto, Octavius, it all makes sense. Like, yeah, great. We know he's coming back. Who cares? Like, who honestly wants to see that at this point?
Yeah, it's just sucked the fun out of it, because it's been so telegraphed and so like, it's coming, and you guys wanted Superior back. Remember, I think that's part of it too. Is like there's that noise in the background, the one of the best things that Dan Slott has written over the last 5 or 6 years. Of course, there's a fondness for it, but it doesn't mean like that. What we need to see is Superior Spider-Man Otto Octavius interacting with the current Peter Parker Spider-Man, because quite frankly we saw that during Spider-Verse and it was pretty terrible.
Yeah,
or uninteresting at least. I mean, like this is like this big triumphant, I'm getting to write this character again that you all loved, and you loved me when I did it, but it's like, yeah, but things are different now, man. I don't know if I care anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is frustrating, and it's all, Mark, I feel like I'm paying money every other week to read the solicits for this book. Like, every book is just, it's not even like a greatest hits or anything. It's like, here's what's coming down the pike, and you're going to pay for it every week, or every other week. There's no joy in that. Like, I want a story in these pages, and to go in a more broad sense, and I know that we're probably just jumping around like crazy talking about this book, but I just find it so frustrating. By the end of this story, and this is an end of a 11-issue story, because even the sub-stories had to deal with this in some way. Like, what am I to take away from this? Did I learn anything about Peter Parker? Did I learn anything about how this affects Parker Industries? Like, is there a moral tale to be told here? I thought about this for several minutes. I couldn't come up with anything. I don't know what I meant to take away from this story other than people punch each other and magical things are happening. That there's no meat there. There's no story. It's just events occurring.
I agree with you 100%. When I look back on this storyline, I mean, how would you summarize what happened? And that's the problem. I mean, like you said, this is 11 issues worth, and you say what you will about how he pays it off, but Dan Slott is notoriously known for packing a lot into a single issue, but it's all empty calories. It's just a big giant cupcake right now. Like,
I mean, but even the stuff packed in here, like the big fight towards the end, is not nearly as entertaining as the fight in the previous issue. Like,
right. Well, I think you said in your review, I mean, there's something tangible about Spider-Man trying to cling to life on a high-speed train versus whatever this was.
some kind of zodiac signs in the sky and the ground and some
and
layer
magic
that
keys
opens up.
and right, and an armpit punch. Of all the things to work, it was the punch to the armpit. Which I was like, okay, is that supposed to mean something? I mean, like, it seems so specific.
You didn't watch The Incredibles, did you, Mark?
I didn't. I'm sorry.
The cape reference. I mean, I don't know if you bristle as much as I do when he makes outside references to like pop culture, but like once in a blue moon is fine. But every issue we're getting these like Spidey references to pop culture, and then the misappropriation of Spidey's catchphrases. Like, when has Spidey ever said yoink before?
He hasn't. But when did he say Crazy Town Banana Pants, which I know was a point of major anger and rage. And I think that was at a point where I was giving Slott so much more benefit of the doubt. So when that whole thing surfaced, I was like, oh, come on, people. Just give it a rest. He's just being cheeky. But now I'm just like, ugh. This is all. I mean, like, I Dan, I mean, I apologize if I'm being too negative, but I mean, like, I just found the whole dialogue between Spider-Man and Scorpio during that fight scene to be dreadful. Like, you know, between the catchphrases. I mean, at one point, like, Spider-Man's response to something that he did was, "Oh, that's not fair," and I'm like, what? Like who's writing this? Like, it's reads so awkwardly and clunky, and there's no flow and there's no real drama. It's just words on a page. Put them on. Okay, next page.
It's just so frustrating. I can't take another story that just says wait till the next story, because
right.
I've been waiting for a story for months. I mean, really, even the Cloak and Dagger story, like, we got some conclusion with Cloak and Dagger, but it was also like, well, Mr. Negative got away and, you know, hold off for a bit. Like, can he apprehend a single villain? Is that too much to ask?
Yeah, I don't know. And you know, it's what's so odd about it is when you look at Marvel and other media right now in terms of like its TV and its movies. I mean, yeah, you know, you had kind of offline. We were talking a little bit about Daredevil season 2 and all of the stuff they packed in and teased for future things there. But at least there seemed to be some semblance of a conclusion in some of these things. You know what I mean? Like it's like Marvel knows what it's doing in other media here, but with this, it's just like, let's just leave it open-ended. Just to kind of nitpick something here, because I mean, we're talking so broadly about this. I don't know if we're going to be able to circle this conversation to something that's so super specific, but just talking about random stuff happening. So what was up with Mockingbird and Anna Maria at the end?
Well, it's funny. I think you may have mentioned this in a previous podcast, or maybe I'm just pulling this from the internet. This idea that Peter and Mockingbird, like, may be establishing some kind of relationship, and like, I think in the most abstract of ways, you might be able to see that happening in the story, but like, it was maybe a line here or there, and here it seems to be like a big point. It's like the bow on this story is that Mockingbird is interested in Peter, but like, there's no interactions between the two of them in this story. Like, she's kind of there, but like, does she like him because he did something honorable or what? Like, where is this relationship coming from, and what is it based on?
Yeah, I mean, and again, like, when I was talking about it, I was kind of like, all right, you know, there could be some seeds being planted, but maybe not. But then they just kind of like, not even just say it out loud, but like say it again. It was just so clunky. Like, oh, she might be liking you, Peter. And then what was with Anna Maria's reaction? Like, why does Anna Maria care who's making eyes at Peter? Like, why is she trying to make her jealous? I don't understand.
I mean, I don't even know whether to take that seriously. Like, is she jokingly, let's make her jealous? Like, there's no indication. These are such non-characters. We can't even read into whether it's a joking, oh, well, we can make her jealous, ha 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 ha, or if it's like, no, I actually want to make her jealous. Because, like, 2 issues ago, we found out that Anna Maria is dating some other guy that we don't know. But, like, all of this is so nebulous, there's no way to tell what any of the motivations of the characters are and what they mean. And then we get the sting of Doc Ock being like, I need to push my plans into action because clearly Anna Maria is trying to get with Peter or whatever. And you're like, wait, so so I guess I am supposed to take this seriously.
Right. And yet another declaration of someone, I need to move my plans forward. Yes, you do. Because I'm tired of speculating about your plans.
I don't even care about his plans.
Well, at least we didn't get the man in red in this issue, a.k.a. Miles Warren.
Yeah. Oh, so you've fully come over to my side by now.
Oh, you're 100% right. It's too obvious for not to be. It's Miles Warren with a new hat.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, what'd you think of Camo's art in this issue?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the splash page. I mean, his art is good. I mean, Camo has been consistently strong. I mean, even when the story hasn't been. But it's very hard to get overly excited when the story is just confusing and in some instances agitating.
Is it just me? I like Camo's art, but I feel like we've seen him around for so long. Even the best Spider-Man artists, I feel like there's a certain point where it's time for them to move on, and Ramos certainly took that cue and said, he'd be interested in coming back eventually. But I love Bagley, but there's a certain time where I want to see something new, and I don't think Camo's style is so unique or interesting enough to on the level of a Bagley or a Ramos that I want him hanging around for this long. I've just kind of gotten bored. I know what to expect. He doesn't really draw that iconic of imagery, and maybe it's also the color palette. It just seems so samey every issue. I really want someone to come into this book and shake up the visuals a little bit.
I don't disagree with that. I just don't know who that artist is. Maybe we should go to the mailbag and see if we have any suggestions.
Sure. Yeah. Who would you like to see drawing this book? I mean, I guess we get those guest artists like we're going to get in Dead No More, but not only do these people only do one arc, most of the time they can't even finish that arc, and then they call on Camo to come in and fill
the gap.
Yeah.
And I wasn't overly impressed with Buffagni during the Cloak and Dagger arc. So, I mean, it is kind of odd. I mean, we've kind of talked about this sometimes regarding the writing component, but in terms of the art component, that a flagship book like Spider-Man can't, I don't know, it can't get bigger names attached to it on the art side, but I guess that's it's because it's a double ship and nobody wants to touch that.
I think it's true of both the writing staff and the art team. The double ship keeps the top tier writers and the top tier artists. They don't want anything to do with the book. And I know that Dan Slott is considered a top tier writer, but I mean, I think everybody's terrified of that.
Yeah. And I guess someone like a Jason Aaron who's doing 2 or 3 books at once plus indie books. I mean, there's someone like him, but yeah, he's kind of like Hickman. I mean, they're very rare breeds, and for whatever reason, they don't seem to kind of gravitate towards the world of Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's not a lot to say about this issue because there's not really that much that happens in it.
That happened. Yeah.
And what does happen, you and I are not particularly fans of. And I think on its own, it's not the worst issue on Earth, but it just is representative of a far greater trend of this book over the past 5-6 years.
Yeah. So we want to just throw grade on it and
let's do
move
it.
on.
Just move on. Yeah.
Well, I said D plus. I guess, I gave it the plus because, like you said, this wasn't like the worst thing I've read, but it was just frustrating. And so, I didn't. It's not an achievement by any chance, but I mean, it's not a failure. Yeah,
and I'm giving it a D. I feel the same as you, but like, I put this book down and was pretty angry because it just. I mean, for all the reasons we've said.
Well, you had to write the review, so maybe if the shoe was on the other foot, I would have taken it down another notch.
Yeah, I mean, I banged that review out really quickly. I was just like so in like I don't even know how much my review is actually about the content of the book. It's like an angry letter to the editors. And I don't know what the disconnect is. I mean, I want to say it was Stephen Wacker leaving. I mean, the minute he left, you could feel a change on this book. So I don't know if it's Dan Slott is not getting the support that he needs to raise his books to that higher level, or if he's just exhausted and disinterested, or if it's he's spending too much time on Twitter, as Tom Brevoort has said on Twitter. I mean, I don't know what it is, but like. There is a disconnect. There has been a noticeable drop in quality and a noticeable interest in the future rather than the present. And it needs to be stated. Someone needs to say it and tell this team.
Yeah. Well, we'll say it. But I don't know. Yeah. What worries me, Dan, is I just don't know if the right people are saying it and making people pay attention. So I mean, yeah. So we'll keep shouting it from our hilltop, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it continues to sell well and get good reviews elsewhere. So I don't know what's wrong with us, Mark.
Everything. Speaking of what's wrong with us, why don't we talk about the Friendly Neighborhood Spider Tuck Members Club?
Stand a little straighter, walk a little prouder, be an innovator, laugh a little louder, go forever greater, we can show you how to, and when will you be then? You belong, you belong, you belong, you belong to the Merry Marvel Marching Society. March along, march along, march along to the song of the Merry Marvel Marching Society.
Well, everybody, we're going to talk about our favorite club and the way that you support our show and keep us going. Like usual, we have still a little bit of ways to go to get to our next goal of having an Image Always podcast. Is that how I'm phrasing this thing?
That sounds about right.
All right. Let's go with it. And, we don't have any new members this week, but it doesn't mean that we're not going to keep giving away some awesome prizes. And so we've raffling up these awesome vintage calendars, and we've got 3 of them to give away. So this week we're giving away another one. Mark, do you want to give me a drum roll or some kind of audio cue here? Okay, and yes, the winner of this week's calendar is Elliot Santiago. So, Elliot, keep an eye in your mail. Congratulations, and thanks for supporting the show. Mark, we've started doing these like bi-weekly extra episodes, and we've got a good number of them starting to build up. What are we going to be talking about this week?
Yeah, Dan, we're going to just have a little brief conversation about with Civil War, Captain America: Civil War coming out, and of course Civil War 2. Another Marvel event starting up in the coming, I think next month or in June. We're gonna do a little fan club extra about some of our favorite Spidey moments from Marvel events. So think of the big events over the years and what your favorite Spider-Man moment is, and see if we talk about it.
Yeah. So of course you can listen in to those extra shows by joining our, what is it called, Mark?
Our Friendly Neighborhood Spider Talk Members Club.
All you have to do is just go to one of our sites and click on the logo and sign up to become one of our recurring Patreon members. And you get a bunch of episodes and free comics. So thanks again to all the people that are supporting us, and I hope you enjoy this extra content.
All right, Dan. Well, why don't we talk about some spider news now?
spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Mark, it's not a very heavy week for Spider news, although a very exciting one for people that like the movies because, last time we had talked about seeing Spider-Man in the movies for the first time, but now we're getting to see a little bit more of him in the movies in Civil War. We got these 2 new trailers that kind of show him geeking out with various members of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What did you think of these 2 new appearances? I guess with Winter Soldier and Captain America.
No, they were definitely a lot of fun. I mean, we're getting more sense of the personality and the youthfulness of Spider-Man. It does kind of strike me, and I mean, I guess it just also demonstrates how late in the game Spidey was added to this whole production. But you would think that he would be a more critical part of the marketing of this movie, and he really hasn't been so far, which I find kind of strange. I mean, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they know they don't really have to push it that hard. But yeah, they finally won this character back. You'd think that they would be using it to make as much money as possible. But, maybe that's how Marvel knows how to treat their fans and give them less. I mean, the rumors are that he has a good 20 to 30 minutes of screen time in this movie, which is not a small amount, including moments as Peter Parker with Aunt May. So, I mean, who knows? But I think that they're holding back on this movie in general after kind of showing everything from Age of Ultron. Perhaps they've realized that they need to do more teasing than revealing, since that movie didn't make as much money as they wanted. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah. And I mean, again, the early reviews on this movie continue to be strong. So, hopefully that will all add up and the payoff will be worth it. And then, of course, the other little bit of movie-related news is that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be in Spider-Man Homecoming. This one surprised me because, again, I was under the impression that Civil War was going to kind of be Downey's Marvel Cinematic Universe swan song, at least until they gave him a new contract or something, which also made me think, would they, I was almost under the impression that maybe that they would kill him off in Civil War, kind of twist what happened in the comics, and instead of, potentially killing off Cap, they kill off Iron Man, you know what I mean? But I guess he's all right. He'll be alive. We know that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because both he and Chris Evans have suggested that they wanted to go on and do other things, and Iron Man 3 explicitly ends as if Robert Downey's contract was up, and it was at the time, so they wanted to write an ending for the character, which they've subsequently ignored, weirdly enough. And now, even today, Robert Downey said that he'd be down for an Iron Man 4. And Chris Evans said that he would love to keep doing Captain America movies because he's realized that the character is a bigger thing than him. And that's so different. I mean, Chris Evans said he wanted to go and direct movies and become a director, and then he did direct a movie and it didn't do very well. So I wonder if he's thinking that he needs to rethink his plans and stick with Captain America, which is printing money and accolades for him. And I think these movies have turned out better than they expected that they would.
I mean, I was going to say, Dan, I mean, I can't speak for any. I mean, you're obviously a lot closer to this than I ever will be, but if you're fortunate enough to get a gig like this for one of these movies, I mean, I don't know, it would have to be taken away from me, I think. You know what I mean? It's this is you're part of what is probably the most successful movie franchise of all time, and it's you get to be a star just by just every time you show up in one of these movies. You know what I mean? It's I was just kind of surprised by that. But when I hear Evans and well, I mean, Downey I can understand because he's had a very up and down career that's, over the years. I mean, but Chris Evans prior to this was, I mean, yeah, he did some successful stuff, but this has been his first like real, I feel like A-list role. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but I think there's a fear of being typecast as this character forever. And like, artistically, I mean, they've spent almost 8 years of their lives devoted to this. I mean, I could see maybe getting bored of it, but both of them have kind of spun these roles into, charitable organizations and really done something good for the world based on their appearances in this film. I think for me it would be very hard to give up, certainly. But I'm
going to say you could typecast me into my Scrooge McDuck pool of money.
Yeah, absolutely. But what do you think about him showing up in Homecoming? What that portends for the movie?
Well, I mean, obviously, what we saw in the Civil War trailer, the first one with Underoos and everything, like there's definitely going to be an alliance here between Peter and Iron Man, which, and it's funny, I read somewhere online the other day, someone saying, oh, but don't worry, Spider-Man will come around and be on Team Cap, because he'll always do the right thing in the end. And we don't really know that as a fact based on this information so far. So it does intrigue me what they're going to do with the character. That's not me saying I'm concerned about it, but it's like, okay, maybe not. Maybe he will be Team Tony Stark, and maybe that says something about how they perceive his character cinematically. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm more curious because, like, when I think of a Spider-Man movie, I think of like a kid in his own unique world, free from the influence of the Avengers. And
right.
By having Robert Downey show up in this, it means for sure, like, they're going to be an active part of his life. And I don't know what that means, like, in terms of him fighting very personal villains, like, like the Vulture, which is rumored to be in this movie. Like, couldn't he just call an Iron Man and be like, take this, like, dude in a Vulture costume out of the sky for me? Like, I don't know what that means necessarily for, Spider-Man. Yes, he can be on the Avengers, but in his essence, he's kind of a street-level character. Daredevil has managed to kind of be on his own without the Avengers, and it makes a certain level of sense. But I don't know about Spider-Man having, like, Tony Stark's phone number and what that means for his villains and his world.
Yeah, but I mean, they could always end up being like an Ultimate Universe thing where it's like, yeah, but, we handle the global threats and you handle the little street-level stuff. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right, well, why don't you take us on home, Dan?
Sure. Of course, you can find all of our new Amazing Spider Talk and old Superior Spider Talk podcasts at superiorspidertalk.com or find us on iTunes and Stitcher. And now we're on Google Play, which is really exciting. So all you Android users that have kind of suffered finding our show can get it on Google Play. And you can do that by searching for Amazing Spider Talk. And if you do, please be sure to leave us a review.
Yeah, and be sure to check us out on Facebook and subscribe to our sister podcast, The Ultimate Spin. And most of all, leave us a voicemail at 9 Red Goblin.
And I know a lot of the team members from the SuperiorSpiderTalk.com team have been guest appearing on The Ultimate Spin because they're covering the Spider-Woman arc. So that's been really exciting to kind of hear the voices of our team on all of our shows.
And now next week, Dan, we're going to be talking about our next essential, and this is going to be your pick after a run of my picks. Or, yeah, it was mostly my picks recently, right?
I think we've been trading off fairly recently.
I can't keep track anymore. I think we did so many of those essential episodes, Dan, that it all got lost. But anyway, what's going to be our next thing so our readers can learn up beforehand?
Well, I mean, it has to only be one thing, Mark, and that's Civil War. We're going to be talking about Civil War, Spider-Man's place in it, and whether or not it should be considered an essential comic, not just in the Marvel Universe, but specifically for Spider-Man. So I guess crack open your trade paperbacks and get ready to talk Civil War with us.
Oh, goody.
Oh, boy, Mark. Well, I'm excited to talk about it. But in the meanwhile, where can all of our listeners find you on the Internet?
Well, of course, you can find me on SuperiorSpiderTalk.com, although you really haven't been able to find me lately. But but next week, we're going to have a super blog team-up post that I'm going to write, I think. So be on the lookout for that. And, of course, you can find me on Twitter at ChasingASMblog. I do apologize lately for kind of being an absentee blogger and editor, Dan. It's just been a little crazy in my personal life, but hopefully in another week or so that'll equalize, and I'll be back in full strength, and maybe I'll even have another series of posts to start pumping out for you guys.
Yeah, well, the same has been true with me. Things have been crazy. I'm directing a commercial in about a week, so the prep on that has been nuts. But, yeah, you can still find me on @SupSpiderTalk and at Dan Gvozden on Twitter, and read all of my stuff on SuperiorSpiderTalk.com and my movie reviews on GrindMyReels.com. It's going to be quiet for a little bit with this commercial coming up, but fear not, listeners, I'm not going anywhere. Mark, there's nothing that I hate more than unsatisfying endings that leave audiences wanting more without actually fulfilling the narrative arc of the story that they've paid to read.
Oh, I agree, Dan. And tune in next week for my next amazing Uncle Ben story. Bye.